If you are looking to build an i9 PC for under $1,000, then today's build is going to serve as, I guess, a bit of excitement considering all the rip-off prices that we're seeing in the new market right now, especially when it comes to graphics cards. Looking at this Titan X, this is going to be one of the stars of the show today, where I got this for 350 Aussie dollars while I was deal hunting. Now, it always didn't look this good. I've had to clean this thing up and spend a bit of time giving it some tender loving care, aka tech yes loving. Then there's the motherboard right here, Gigabyte Z370. Got this used off eBay for 100 Aussie dollars, which makes it around 75 USD. Right inside that is an i9 9980HK laptop CPU equivalent, where it's kind of a weird thing, but you can get these for around $150 off of AliExpress, where they've already got an adapter, which then you have to update the BIOS on a particular motherboard. I'll put some links in the description below, but after you do this, you essentially have 8 cores, 16 threads, with all the latest and greatest features that you would even get on something like a 9900K, which costs a lot more than this CPU right here. Then for the memory, we're using 32 gigabytes of generic stuff. We're gonna be spending a little bit of time trying to clock this as high as we can, but since we're dealing with a laptop CPU, the speeds don't go that high. This would be the only drawback of today's build. But then for storage, we've got a 3 terabyte hard drive. You can pick these up if you look hard enough on the used market for about 30 USD. I managed to pull this out of a previous build that came in that I've already flipped for the PC Ultra Clean series. I'll put the link up here if you want to see that. Then we've got an SSD right here, 480 gigabytes, which is going to serve as our main boot drive and scratch drive, since today's PC will not only hopefully be a really good gaming PC, but it's also going to serve as an awesome video editing PC too. Then we got the power supply. Pick this up for 50 Aussie dollars locally here. Tough Power 750 watt gold rated power supply, modular, and this thing was pretty much like brand new. I didn't really need to clean it up that much besides some data vacking, but I'll quickly show you some B-roll of how that went down, together with this motherboard right here, which was actually a little bit dirty, but that came up now like brand new. Then the last 2 components right here to talk about is this Corsair H115i cooler. This is not the RGB stuff, this is the OG H115i with the massive thick tubes. Now, we did have to clean this up. We got this for 50 Aussie dollars, but it came in a little bit scuffed, where all these tubes had the, I like to call it the wig maker. We took off the wig maker and now it looks a lot more cleaner. And then lastly, for the case, we're putting in the only brand new part in today's build, and that is a Gamdius RGB tower, which we paid 89 Aussie dollars for. And with that all aside, let's put this thing together and see what we come up with.
Do you feel like this when you see this? Well, if so, you can get rid of that Windows activation message with today's video sponsor SCD Keys for as little as $12 USD. After you use that coupon BFTYC, you can get activated today. Links in the description below.
There is the PC, and here is my cup of tea, which I am going to raise a toast to you guys and give you a cheers. This one's got cinnamon and honey in it, and that's how I like my tea. And how I like my PCs is just what we've got right here. We've got a good amount of RGB. Well, I mean, I like RGB. I don't love it, but you need RGB in a PC nowadays, especially if you want to have some street cred amongst the other fellow PC gamers. But for me, most importantly, especially if I want to reflip this thing, I'm definitely going to need RGB. Now, we've got the 3 ring fans at the front, and we can change the colors of those through different modes, RGB. And we've got this subtle GeForce GTX glow coming in, which I've matched it to the green fans, because hopefully when we go to resell this thing, some NVIDIA fanboy comes along and they're just going to fall in love with it. But I mean, what we've got right here, all the used parts, they ended up working absolutely fine. This build is really quiet, at least for now. I haven't stress tested it just yet, but what we're going to do from here on in is we're going to be running a couple of benchmarks to compare it to the recent RTX 3060 build that I built here, and that one was coming in around 2,400 Aussie dollars. This one coming just a little bit over 1,000 Aussie dollars. I want to compare the performance numbers and show you guys what used price performance can do, especially if you're on a budget, but you still want to get RGB bling and you still want to have something that's pretty contemporary and it's going to do a good job. Let's get into it. And after all the benchmarking is done, the numbers are in, some people are probably going to find the remote and the RGB the most interesting thing. But for me, and a lot of others, the performance numbers are going to be the best thing going. So what we got right here was when we loaded up Dota 2, I was finding that the performance was very similar to the RTX 3060 build that we recently did. In fact, the 1080p numbers and the 1440p numbers were slightly better than the 11400F build with the 3060, the RTX 3060. And it was only a slight difference, but it goes to show that the i9, even the laptop version that we used in today's build, is doing a little bit better than the 11400F. And I'd say mainly due to its higher clock speeds. This thing was clocking in at 4.5 gigahertz. Now you can get a little bit higher, but since I'm going to be rig flipping this PC, 4.5 gigahertz is going to be a safe level versus the power consumed. Now, quickly interluding with the power consumption, we were getting up to around 370 watts from the walls. So that gold rated power supply is helping bring down those numbers slightly, but overall the i9 and this Titan X isn't juicing a whole lot of power when we're gaming. And we did test this in Cyberpunk where the GPU is getting maxed out and the CPU is kind of chugging along and burning up a bit of power. Though another thing to look at just besides power consumption is the temperatures, and they were really well controlled, where that H115i, of course, even though it's one of the earlier editions without all those fancy improvements, it still kept that CPU under 70 degrees. It did spike on some of the cores to 70 degrees, but this is direct die cooling with this i9 laptop part. But I thought it did a phenomenal job, especially since all we paid for it was 50 Aussie dollars. And then we're moving down now to that Titan X, where this was kind of the earlier models where they went for the fancy look on that reference edition. I don't know if they called it the Founders Edition just yet with the Titan X, but it did perform pretty poorly in my opinion. It was going to 83 degrees, and this is in a 23C environment, but they did keep the noise profile really low. And this is pretty much the constant noise that you're going to hear even when you're gaming. So if you do get an older Titan card, whether it's a Titan or a Titan X or a Titan XP, I would look at maybe perhaps tuning a custom fan profile to bring down those temperatures. Though continue on with those Dota 2 numbers, we got a victory at 1080p and 1440p, but setting things up to 4K was when we're getting much more GPU bound, especially in Dota 2, and this is where that 3060 rig was getting around 120 FPS. With this right here in a really intensive sort of match, this is where I'm starting to benchmark now in Dota 2 because that's what you guys request. We were getting around 105 average FPS, so it was a little bit behind the RTX 3060, but when we look at the price of a new RTX 3060, at least in Australia they're going for around 1,000 Aussie dollars off the shelves. This coming in at $350 is certainly offering really good price performance. Though the next game that we're going to pull up here is Cyberpunk, where this kind of paints a bit of a different story, but it goes to show that if the game manufacturers in conjunction with Nvidia do focus on optimizing for only their newer cards and not the older cards, and this is where in 1080p we're getting around 57 average FPS, and this was on the low settings preset, and then stepping things up to medium, we were getting in the 40s, and then moving on to high, it was 39, and then going to ultra was 32. So it was significantly lower than the 3060, and of course, we didn't have any of the other features like DLSS or ray tracing. Though in the case of Cyberpunk, if I wanted to play this game, then it's still going to give out a playable experience at low settings. It's just a shame that we don't get more optimizations from Nvidia with this game for the older hardware. Anyway, the last benchmark to go over is one that we can all load up and all compare our numbers, and that is the Firestrike benchmark. This is the OG Firestrike, which I like to definitely calculate in my head when I'm buying things for price performance. So I look at the graphics score and the physics score here, as it's a very reliable indicator, and it doesn't include all the latest stuff like ray tracing in it or newer features, but it does give you that raw performance figure to see how good the raw value is on a particular card. And here's where on the graphics score we're getting over 17,000. And then on the CPU score, the physics score, this was very impressive, coming over 21,000. If you can get a cheap Z370, I'd go for the Gigabyte boards because they're easy to sort of put the custom BIOS in. Then getting one of these i9s off AliExpress is a really good option and a really good path to consider if you want to get 8 core 16 threads. That's very relevant and can definitely give you a good gaming experience. Now in terms of the memory, we managed to tune that to 2900 megahertz, and that was across 4 sticks, and we got that at CL16. So the memory wasn't that great, but the i9, the engineering samples, and the laptop CPUs that are converted to desktops, to begin with, they can't really extract high memory clocks. So I think matching that with budget memory on a budget Z370 does really get the most out of this whole combo. And in the end, we're left with a PC that looks really nice, and it does have that performance to match. So do let us know in the comment section below what you're thinking about this build right here. I'm definitely digging the Gamdius cases, even though they're a little bit more pricey than say the $50 RGB bangers that I'm rolling around here at Tech Yes City. They do definitely look like you're getting a bit more worth when it comes to the final product. Anyhow guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to smash that like button. Also, I'll put some links in the description below for some of the stuff that you can easily get off the internet. I think the hardest part of today's build is going to be that graphics card, at least while the crypto profitability is still pretty high. That's going to be pretty much the sole factor dictating the prices of GPUs. So when you look at that profitability and it's still pretty high on the newer graphics cards, that's pretty much going to span through the whole industry, where people are going to keep buying up those graphics cards and putting them in mining benches and pressing play, and that's going to affect the prices for the gamers to want to pick them up at lower prices. So unfortunately, the mining profitability is still high. I'm hoping that it will come down and significantly come down in the next month or two, and I'm waiting for that. But until then, I think picking up some of these older cards is a much better play, especially when we look at the price that I paid for this Titan X versus say a new RTX 3060. And we just hold the line, don't buy them new graphics cards, just let them sit there and the prices will come down. And also on that note, if we do hold the line, at some point the miners are going to run out of space, where they're then going to have to purchase more real estate, more power boards, more this, more that, and perhaps they'll run out of juice faster than the profitabilities will sink. Who knows, though I do long for that day, and I will catch you guys in another tech video very soon. If you've stayed this far and you're enjoying that Tech Yes content, then be sure to hit that sub button, ring that bell to get the videos as soon as they drop, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.